Hey, my name is Katie Pijanowski, and I'm a certified life coach and motivational speaker, and I'm here to help you unlock your true strength so you can create the life of your dreams. I teach you my best tips to master your mindset, create confidence, and empower yourself to take back your life. It's your time. This is the Mind and Body Strong podcast. Welcome back to the Mind and Body Strong podcast. I have yet another friend of mine here, Marlena Wolf, and she is a business owner and mom who decided to walk away from corporate America when her health was at an all-time low to take on an internship on an organic vegetable farm, and she's never looked back. Her health has improved. She's built up her intuition and confidence on food production and fell in love with sustainable agriculture and large-scale gardening. Since then, she's owned and operated her business Girl Next Door Farm for 4 years and Guidance for Growers Consulting, where she educates, empowers, and serves farmers and gardeners that want to learn how to start growing veggies successfully. Super cool story, and I'm really excited to hear just how you were able to take your own experiences with your health and how this kind of led you down this road for really getting into agriculture and finding out how food is really produced in a healthy way. And I'm just so excited to hear about your story because it's so interesting. So welcome to the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Katie. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited too. I'm so glad that you had reached out. We're in a similar Facebook group and she had saw me post about wanting to interview really interesting people on my podcast. And I loved her story. I was like, wow, I've never heard of someone doing such a cool thing with like gardening and like growing. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't know a lot about. So I'm really interested to hear like how you got to that place. Tell us how you got started with all this, like your health experience and how this kind of like led you down this road of like figuring it out for yourself.
Love to. So I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in the suburbs. My dad always had a green thumb. He grew up on a farm actually, but so he always had a garden, but I was never interested. I was more interested in watching TV and eating Doritos. So, and so like, that's kind of like where my journey began, was like, I was just a normal kid in America, just kind of middle class. I mean, we had what we needed, but we also kind of had some junk food laying around, and like some quick food options and things like that. And, it just got to be kind of a lifestyle. And I got into kind of poor health starting as a teen and then into my early adulthood. And I just got like fed up like super quick with like chronic kind of health issues. Like month after month, I'm having some reoccurring problems.
If you don't mind sharing, like what were you experiencing?
So digestive issues and like a candida. So like chronic yeast. Every month. And I was, allergic to this thing and the other thing didn't work. And it was just like constant. And so it got to be like desperation is what got me into the health food life, the healthy life, because I was so tired, right? And so I actually sought out a holistic medicine doctor who basically just educated me and schooled me on some shit about like processed food and diet and nutrition and where our nutrition comes from and, why what I was doing wasn't working for me. And, I was like just desperate enough to like listen, and he was like, you have got to eliminate. That was like strong language. I'm like, eliminate sugar and, highly refined sugars and flours and white flour. And those are like the big two. It was like white sugar, white flour, because I was drinking a lot of pops and I was snacking on candy and like a lot of processed stuff. And he was like, you got to get on some whole food, like organic, whole food, raw vegetables. Meats and, dairy was all right too. And I mean, he was not like a purist, but, he wanted me to get the message. Like, you need to detox your body off a lot of this stuff and incorporate something different. Drink a lot of water, whatever.
I'm
And
curious
so,
what your initial reaction was to that, because I know for me, if someone were to tell me like eliminate all this stuff, I would like freak out, because like as someone who uses food as such had used food as such an emotional crutch, and like we're so, we have all these habits around food, and we don't even recognize that a lot of the foods we're eating, like, yeah, I love pizza and candy, and that's all fine. I want to like make that a point, but like when you actually tune in and realize it's not like, I don't like, pizza makes me feel really bloated, and like when you actually think about how it makes you feel, like an hour later, a day later, you're like, oh. So I'm interested to know your initial reaction to like his response about that and how you worked through that.
it was probably like, boy, boo. Boo hoo, doc.
Right.
But you know what? Honestly, I was really in a position of humility when I went to him, because I was very uncomfortable. Anybody that's been down that road understands, like, that is some serious discomfort. So, I don't know, like, I was really open-minded about it. Like, I did this like candida cleanse with all these different herbs from like the health food store. I started doing probiotics and omegas, and started doing some like green drinks. So I feel like for me, it was more like, I did kind of go cold turkey on the harsher stuff, like the easier stuff that weren't like really food products. They were more like snacky stuff, like the pops and the candies and that kind of stuff. So I kind of just was like, all right, I'll surrender those, and then I'll start to incorporate, because that's what you have to do. Like, you can't just, personally, cold turkey and anything is really hard. Like, I like transitions. I didn't go home and like empty out my pantry in 5 minutes. Like, I was like, okay, I will listen, and I will get some whole grain stuff or some sprouted grain options, or, some beans and some fresh veggies and some salads. Like, I am not purist. I mean, like, I had some pizza yesterday. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I am all like transparent here. But it definitely, like you said, it makes me feel a certain way. Feels good in the beginning, and it's quick and it's convenient, but the energy level was bad. And so I felt that, and like, I need energy. Like, I want to feel good, like my brain, mind, body, strong. Like, I need those things to be matching up. And I felt really groggy a lot, and tired a lot. And, I was a young woman. Like, this is not looking good on me. So yeah, that was my initial reaction. I was actually pretty willing. I didn't like the sound of it. And in fact, when I kind of like detoxed off sugar, like for 2 weeks, I was a grumpy bitch.
Yeah.
You can say that on your podcast, but
Absolutely.
I was so grumpy, because like my body was craving, like, sugar feeds yeast.
Oh,
and if
yeah.
you starve the yeast, they get pissed.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important to like mention those things, though, because we do get really addicted to foods like that. And I love that you were in this place where you were open and accepting of like wanting to fuel your mind and body better, to just have more energy, or just in that space where you were ready. And like in my journey, I remember like for me, it was like a lot of just getting rid of a lot of the negative connotations with foods. And then I came to a place where I was feeling much like you. I was very foggy, didn't have energy. And I was like, okay, I need to do something to better myself. And I started getting more in touch with like how foods were making me feel. And like sugar for me, like I love me some cookies and some ice cream. Had some ice cream last night, but like if I eat that all the time, like my brain doesn't function like how it needs to,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So once I began that journey, like it just was like a freight train. It was like I couldn't slow it down. I like became obsessed with educating myself about where our food comes from. And because that doctor, he really planted some seeds, and he gave me some books to read. And it was like, all of a sudden I had all this new information about like nutrition and the food system in our country, and how it kind of has moved away from the farm to the factory setting, and kind of how there's been some integrity lost along the way. And not only the processing of things for like the more shelf stable options, but also kind of like overusing farmland so that there's a lot of soil depletion so that foods aren't actually like getting the nutrients. So like even if you're eating vegetables, sometimes it's like, but are they like, are they like from nutrient depleted soil? So I became crazy about it. I got all obsessed about it. So, so then I was like, oh my God, what do I do to improve this? Right. And I had never gardened at all. I didn't even like vegetables. Let me just say that right now.
That's an important point.
Boring.
Right? So that's such an interesting shift then, going from like Doritos and pop to like Veggie Queen.
I know. It's so weird. I mean, like I said, I did not plan this. Like it caught me so off guard that I fell in love with this industry. It was never on my radar. It was never on the forefront of my mind. It just like happened. And I feel like that journey it started with the poor health, but then just like a quest for knowledge, like a thirst for more information. And I started frequenting like farmers markets, and I was shopping, but I was also like snooping around and, like wanting to come volunteer on your farm. And, and I was like joining, like local nonprofits, like plant-based eating groups, and like local, small farm advocacy groups, and like going to conferences and lectures. Like I just became this like sponge of like, I just need to know more information. And that's when that internship kind of fell on my lap. I was nosing around all the right places. And at first, listen to this, I laughed at this internship. It was $400 a month, room and partial board, which means they provided some food, but not all your food.
Right.
In a 100-year-old farm shack. Degraded. It was not kept up. Let's just say that. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't think so, buddy. Thanks, but no thanks. And like the more I prayed about it and I beat it to death. I mean, pro and con list, and all my friends, I exhausted all them about it, and I prayed and I didn't know what to do because it suddenly started to be like appealing. I was out of college for 4 years. I was in the legal field, making good money, security, insurance, 401k, no debt except my student loan. No kids, just, I had all kinds of freedom, but I was not happy at my job at all. Like I was doing great, and I was like sitting at conference room tables with all these attorneys, and, I was wearing a suit and high heels, and, I thought I was big stuff. 26, big stuff. And I just grew really discontent, and I felt really unfulfilled. And when that internship crossed my attention, I really, after I laughed at it, then I like gave it more attention. And, and suddenly I was like, I don't have anything to lose. Like maybe if I just take this leap of faith, that's what it was, like 100%. Maybe I will feel like I'm being of service to people who are in the same boat. Like they're in a quest for health. They need information. And I just like didn't want to be a hypocrite, I guess. I felt like if I didn't get in this like niche, then I wasn't being true to myself, which is weird because that was never a part of my life before. But once I got into that internship, I started doing some digging, like family history. And it turns out, well, I knew my dad grew up on a farm, but I didn't know anything about his side of the family. And they were all farm people.
It was meant to be. I didn't even know it.
It was hysterical. It was so awesome. And I thought, if they can do it, I can do it, because there was a lot of females.
Yeah, and I think that mindset that you had is what really helped you make this shift. And I want to definitely hear about that shift from the like corporate world to doing this totally out of the box thing you never thought you would do. And I think that's kind of where I'm seeing what I'm hearing you say kind of stemmed this. Like you had this belief already, like you had built up this belief, like, well, if they could do it, I can too. I need to spread this knowledge. Like I have value to give to people from my own experience, and I want to like immerse myself in figuring out more about this.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Mm-hmm. The transition from corporate America to the farm was horrible. The first month, I thought this was the worst decision of my entire life.
Man, tell us about it.
It was so hard. It was so hard. You know, the best comparison that I can give is like when you are in an office, you have a nice cushion chair on wheels, you have a nice dry box of tissue, you have a hot coffee, a cold water, you are comfortable, climate control, right? But when you're in the field, you can be with the elements, right? You can be wet, you can be cold, you can be hot, you're always getting cut and bruised. You've always got some new rash. Like, what is happening? You know, it's pouring down the rain. You know, it's like your glasses are covered in water. You can't see half the shit. You know, it's just like, woo. And so you begin to like adapt. Like, okay, well, now I need a handkerchief instead of a tissue. Mm-hmm. Now I need to get my drink bottles ready because they need to be enclosed. Like, you know, and just, I need to have pockets that are, you know, that I can contain my checkbook and my phone safely and like whatever, you know, it's just like it's just a whole different shift. I mean, my body was beat up too, like all the weird positions you're in. It's just like a whole new experiment with your body that you didn't really sign up for that.
Well, and it's totally different from sitting at a desk. I kind of went like the opposite way where I was an outdoor fitness boot camp instructor. We never canceled. So I was out in the elements and, you know, we would train in the rain and like sometimes 5 people under a tiny pavilion doing workouts. And it was like sweaty and gross and like their mats were wet from the humidity because I live in Dallas. And it's funny transitioning to a job where I sit at a desk mostly. And I have to be more conscious about like being outside in the elements and like, you know, getting my body moving. And I also noticed that my allergies are worse now that I work inside.
Right? Same.
Yeah. It's so crazy. I feel like being out in the elements was like so like important for me. And so now I have to make more of a conscious effort to do that, which is fine because now I recognize that. But I think it's interesting. You kind of went the other way. Like being inside to transitioning to be like, oh my gosh, I'm getting bruised and rashes and like it's raining and I can't see and it's just crazy.
Yeah, girl, I was not prepared for that.
Being that it was such a different transition, what kept you going through all of that?
I'll tell you what it was. I feel like it was the people I worked with. You know, there were 3 other female apprentices with me in that farmhouse. And then there were 2 employees and then the main farmer. And they were all fairly young. We were all maybe 20s and 30s with the exception of the farmer. He, at the time I've worked, was his name. It was at Field Day Family Farm in Louisville. He was maybe in his 50s, maybe 40s or 50s. So anyway, you know, we just like had a lot of fun. I had fun. But it took me, I am a perfectionist and I'm a workaholic at heart. You know what I mean? And so I think when most of us get thrown into a new environment, anytime you get a new job, it can be very frustrating adjusting and acclimating to the new culture and the new business, the process, and the new rhythm, right? You have to get into this rhythm. And I was frustrated as hell because I think I'm a badass and I want to be right off the bat the best, you know.
I'm very much like you in that way.
Well, so I remember the pivotal day for me. Me and Seamus, is the only other male employee other than the farmer. We were up on this field, this hill field, and we were building a greenhouse. And the truck is under the greenhouse skeleton, and it's big, it's tall. And he is in his truck bed, and I'm on his shoulders trying to reach this bolt. You know what I mean? And it was just like, I just like looked around and I just like started laughing. I'm like, this is like so absurdly ridiculous. Like, I am on your shoulders in the bed of a truck. I'm about to fall and bust my face. And I don't know, like it just became like comical to me. And I just kind of had to learn to like take myself, like I couldn't take myself too seriously anymore. Like I had to just let it go and just embrace like, this is what we're doing today, you know? tomorrow I might be shoveling shit.
Right. And that's okay. I think that's so interesting to bring up because you went from like a legal field where it's very like polished, and you mentioned wearing suits and heels, and to where you're probably, you know, have mud on your face and you're sweating and you're standing on this guy's shoulders and you're just like, yeah, this is what we're doing today. Being very open to the experience of what's going on. Right. I feel like in the field you were in before, it was probably maybe more rigid.
Very rigid.
Yeah. Very stressful too. And now you have this room to like experiment and be open and have fun and realize that you can do those things.
Well, and you know, I was a server through college. So, I mean, I always had fun with that, with all the people and the exchanges. So it was very unnatural for me to be in the legal field anyway. You know, it felt very, very stuffy. Very early on, I could feel the stuffiness. Yeah. And so for me, getting out of that felt really good. Mm-hmm. Very good.
Yeah, I love that. So you're in this internship. You would then decide to, was the first business I mentioned, the Girl Next Door Farm, was that yours?
That was mine.
Okay. Yeah. So you have that one, and you have guidance for growers consulting.
That's right. So the farm that I did the apprenticeship on, I wound up staying there for an additional season as an employee. And during that year, I was given an opportunity to move out of the county by myself onto a 22-acre farm in LaGrange, which is in Oldham County, just outside of Louisville. And a dear friend of mine, actually the woman that I used to work for I was a court reporter. And so she bought this farm and wanted somebody to live out there. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. You know, let me move out to 22 acres by myself. I can handle that. And I just decided one day that I'm tired of commuting back and forth. And so I'm going to go ahead and start my own farm business out here. And that's what I did in 2011. Girl Next Door Farm was born. And I had about an acre in production during that time. So you can figure about one person per acre on that like small scale, hand labor type, intensive like way we did it. And I didn't like have a crew, I would bring people in occasionally, seasonally, temporarily. I wouldn't, I didn't have any like full-time people to like help me manage it. So, I had about an acre in production, all organic stuff. And that was a hell of a ride.
I bet it sounded like a labor of love.
It was, yeah, it was fascinating for me though, because there was just like a new challenge every year. And that's another thing, we were talking a minute ago about, when you get into a new job, how you want to get a flow. Well, the thing about seasonal gardening and farming is that you have 4 seasons. And so just when you feel like you're getting a rhythm with one crop or with one principle, then it starts to transition into something else, right? So that is kind of a part of the joy in it though, because I think as people, as human beings with our thinking brains, like we like to learn. Like we want to be stimulated mentally, mind strong, baby. Right? Like that for me, like kept me so intrigued and on my toes in a way. And a lot of people think about gardening and farming and they think it's this really slow, like, oh my God, I got to wait 2 months before my plant is ready to pick, whatever. But the truth is it really, the seasonal rhythm of a vegetable garden or farm is very transformational in and of itself. And then you feel all that energy too. You're very grounded in nature. Your hands are in the dirt constantly. You got those microbes under your fingernails. You are neutralized by the energy of the earth. And the sun and the wind and the elements. I don't know. It is just like from like a bare field to, you know, these tiny little sprouts coming up. Like it's very maternal too. It's very nurturing too, as a female. For me, it was, you know, these tiny little sprouts, and you're so excited that they germinated and they survived, you know, and then they become little plants. And, you know, the next time you're out there, maybe, you know, a few weeks later, they're like foot high, and then they're like 3 feet high, and you're like, holy shit. Like the whole barren field is now like bursting with life, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like edible, mature plants. And you're like, oh my God, now we're like enjoying all this abundance. And so, I don't know, I feel like that experience, when you grow your own food, you eat so much more fresh food on a daily basis. Like I would have a salad with my eggs in the morning, and a salad, big old huge salad, you know, lunch with some fresh tomatoes and some, you know, locally baked bread and some like, you know, goat cheese or whatever, like just so good. And it's there, and you're like, oh my God, what creative thing. To me, it made me feel very creative in the kitchen. You know, when I go to like the big like supermarkets, big grocery stores, like I'm not like, I don't feel inspired like that, like at all. Farmers markets help me. It's an outdoor environment. It feels more natural. And then when I grow my own stuff and I've got all this produce on the counter and in my fridge, and you know, it's like, oh my God, we need to have a feast, baby.
Yeah, and you grew that yourself, so it's like that kind of like pride behind it too, of like you nurtured this plant and really helped it grow, and you're very in touch and grounded with it, and now it's like this whole like experience. I feel like
it is. It's like very much like a life cycle. You know, it's like you cultivated this earth, and you have been a good steward of this seed, and now you are enjoying like the fruit of your labor, and it's super nutritionally dense. It's super fresh. It's at the peak of its freshness. You know, like as soon as you pick something, it starts to like lose its cellular integrity, and like its enzymes start to die. And so if you think about something that is shipped 2,000 miles, like it's already starting to lose some of that like enzyme energy. And so, yeah, eating locally, eating seasonally, that is going to be the most nutritionally dense stuff you can eat. And I felt my health, like I wasn't making a lot of money, right, in the beginning, but it was like my health was at an all-time high. You know, it was like everything improved for me. You know, vitamin D for sure.
Yes.
I had one nasty farmer's tan. I'll have to admit it. It was not flattering.
Worth it. It's okay.
Worth it though. Yeah. And so, you know, 4 or 5 years go by when I was out there, and I finally, I made it sound bad, but I got engaged, and my soon-to-be husband moved in out there, and we actually lost a baby. So we got pregnant, and I was out on the tractor all day, bouncing around, trying to plow up more ground before the winter came. And, you know, I didn't feel real good that day. I had this real bad migraine. And then like in that night, I lost that baby. And that was my first pregnancy. And it devastated me, really. Like it was, at the time, it was not, I was so sad, you know, like I was actually ready to be a mom. And I just kind of like knew in my heart, like in that moment, like I can't be bouncing around on a damn tractor all day pregnant. I can't be out here moving hundreds of pounds of tomatoes in the freaking 100-degree August. Like this isn't going to be compatible, I don't think, right now. And, you know, and it was toward the end of the season. It was mid-October. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. Like I'm ready to embrace this new chapter and surrender my love and my passion. And I say that, but I never really did. Like I grieved the shit out of that farm, dude. Like I cried the day we sold my tractor. Look, let me back up. I got pregnant that next summer. We got married, we got pregnant that next summer. And on my due date, I tilled up this big old patch garden this big old area for a garden. And then that weekend we sold my tractor because I had been so stinking sick. Like, I don't know, I get sick when I'm pregnant. I am puking. I am on the couch. My energy is like kaput. Like, I go from highly productive, crazy person, workaholic to like couch bound, puking in the toilet. So it really was a battle for me to let go and look out at those fields every day, and they're overgrown, not tended to, you know, like it broke my heart, really. Like, it made me upset. It did. It really did. And when, I don't know. And so, like, we lived out there for another couple of years, and then we moved off the farm, and then the farm sold. It wasn't ours. I was a tenant out there. You know, I was renting it, and it wound up selling. And by then we were like pregnant with our second daughter, and it was like we needed to be around people because none of my people were out there. All my people were in town, and they weren't coming out there to help my pregnant ass because it was too far and it wasn't convenient, you know, just to pop by and give me an hour nap or whatever. So it was like, you know, right now I'm not farming anyway. We don't need to be out in the county. Like, let's get in around our families. And so we can have some support with these girls, you know. And so we bought this house, and it's a corner lot. So we've got some yard. We got some nice flat yardage. It's not what I'm used to, but I thought I'd be like a fish out of water, but I'm actually okay. I'm actually all right. And, you know, about 6 months ago, well, I had been doing some direct sales in the holistic, you know, health and wellness industry in that time, in that downtime, really. And I loved that for the most part. I mean, I enjoy supplements, you know, and good health and all that. And so that was a good way for me to kind of branch into like the online world and start marketing stuff and like putting myself out there and get out of my comfort zone, and building relationships and networking. And I don't know. And then like 6 months ago, my daughter was probably 6 months old. I was at this conference, the Summit of Slay conference.
Oh, you went to that?
Yes.
So fun.
It was so fun. And like I told you anyway, I love conferences, lectures. I'm a junkie for information. I want it. You got it. I want it. Especially if I'm getting thirsty for something.
Yeah.
You know, and I was feeling like I needed a shift, a change. Like I wanted to really blow up my business. I really wanted to be more successful and to be more of service. And I just wanted some new information. And I went there, and a seed got planted that I could, like, the question was like, what are you a real expert in? Because this was a conference for women entrepreneurs or women wanting to become entrepreneurs, coaches, you know, whatever it was that you know, there was all kinds of women there with all kinds of products and services. And, you know, I was there for my health and wellness business. But what I heard was, what are you an expert in? Right?
That got the
like,
feels.
Yeah. And I thought, well, you know, I don't know if I would say I'm an expert in nutrition, but I know a hell of a lot about it because of my experience with bad health and then, you know, getting that to be improved. But what I really knew to be what I'm really an expert in is horticulture, you know, market gardening, growing vegetables like a beast, you know, that's what I do.
Yeah.
And then one other woman said, well, you know, I incorporate sustainable living in with my marketing and this and that. And it was just like, oh my God, the shit clicked for me. I was like, I can sell online courses and like do online programs and help people like grow a successful garden or farm. Like, so that's why I selected like Guidance for Growers Consulting, because it's not just gardeners, but it's also farm people like me that want to scale up and learn how to grow for profit. So I wanted to kind of like catch both of those
pockets of people because I can help both of them. There's definitely a lot more gardeners in the world. So I felt like I need to be sure I am speaking to those people too, you know. So yeah, I thought, oh my God, I need to do this. And that is what I did, you know. Yeah. Once I get it in my head to do something, it's almost like I can't turn it off.
Yeah, I've seen that trend, but it's like I think that's such a powerful thing because you just set your intention and you just find a way. And I feel like you have, based on our conversation so far, I feel like you have such this like self-belief about yourself that when you experience something and like allow it to like take over your body, you just like, you go out there and you just like implement. And I feel like you're like just in that place where you needed that creative outlet again. And that was like the seed that just like sprouted right there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize this was an option for me. And
right.
You know, look at you. You know, I think that is the most creative business idea I've ever heard. Like when I went out and was like guidance for growers, I was like, wow, I could think of so many people who are like maybe interested about growing their own vegetables, but don't have any clue. Like I would have no idea how to start and like what kind of soil to use. And like, I can't keep plants because I can't keep them alive. So I'd be like, I need your help.
I know. Well, trust me, you are like the majority of people. I've been finding that so much. Like, what season, you know, does this grow well in? When do I plant? Like, how do I fix the soil? Like, why is my shit dying? Like, what's wrong? There's so many questions. But I just want to say as a little caveat, I kill house plants.
Okay, I feel better now. I always tell my boyfriend never to buy me flowers because I'll kill them. I have a money tree. It's actually my dad's.
I love money trees.
Right? The only reason I have it still is because my roommate takes care of it.
Nice.
She's
Way to go.
keeping care of it. I know. Shout out to her. She's the greatest. It wouldn't have it if not. But I have a question too. Like, so for those people who are just kind of getting interested in this, maybe want to start growing, is there like maybe specific things that is great to start with, or do you just like, how do you go about helping people who want to just get started with that?
Yeah, well, you know, first when I talk to somebody, I like to know, one, what kind of space are they working with? Spatial dimensions, like, are they got a big yard, and you know, or is it like a tiny area? Is it going to be vertical? Is it going to be, I don't know. So space is a question, and then full sun, because most vegetables like 6 to 8 hours of full. That's considered full sun. And so if you don't have a space for that, then you might have difficulty growing veggies. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's like, we got to find that, and it needs to be wherever your garden plot's going to be. It needs to be away from trees, not just because of shade, but also because the roots, trees are very thirsty and they pull a lot of water and nutrients away from your garden, right?
I wouldn't have done that at all. But that makes so much sense.
You know? And then if you're tilling, so if you're doing like a in-ground garden, then you're going to be hitting roots with your tiller, which is also not awesome. Right? So then we talk about, like, do you want to do a raised bed, and like the pros and cons of like an in-ground garden versus a raised bed versus container gardening. Mm-hmm. You know, so we have those conversations. Have you ever, you know, taken a soil sample and did a soil test? I know that sounds like so nerdy. But like, if you don't know what you're working with, you will probably not succeed. I mean, it's odd for a yard that just has grass in it to be in good condition for vegetable growing, because grass has different needs than vegetables.
True.
You know? So, yeah. So
really,
those
if you have like a garden, like, or you want to start a garden, is there like a lot of prepping of the space to use to grow those vegetables, to like prime it to be like ready for that?
Not if you want to do a raised bed at all. I mean, literally you can, and I actually do installations for people all the time. Like, you can build a big, beautiful red cedar raised bed
or you can throw some pine together, which isn't going to last as long, but it's a lot cheaper. Or I had a girl the other day, they cut down a tree in their yard and they literally used the trunk to build 4 walls. They didn't even secure it. They just threw the logs in a rectangle and we put soil in it, right? Yeah. So I use a nice planting mix, which has like topsoil, sand, and compost, and it's organic, because I'm a big believer in natural products instead of like synthetic stuff that can leach chemicals and plastics and stuff into the soil, because that kills the microbial content, and you want like healthy bacteria in your soil because they help with nutrient availability for your plants. So yeah, boom, throw your raised bed together and you can plant that sucker right away. But and containers too. If you just have like a bunch of different pots, those are like boom, you can plant those right away. But if you do have your ground and you get your soil sample, that can take a few weeks. Or you could do an in-home soil sample. They're just like less specific, but still helpful, still very helpful. You might have to, most likely you will have to amend your soil, which means just add some nutrients to it, maybe some compost, maybe some nitrogen. So NPK, your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, are like the main macronutrients for vegetables. And if those are depleted, then you'll have to add some of those for sure. Yeah. And yeah, it's a lot of info. But anyway, you can do that pretty much right away. But if you have like a pH imbalance in your soil, that can take some time to correct. But you know what? Most gardeners and farmers that I know are gamblers, and they will take a chance any damn way, and they will go ahead and plant and roll the dice, baby, because they want to grow stuff. So, yeah. So anyway, it's fun.
Cool. I just love all that, because I feel like there's so many different trends, like through your experience with gardening, that like relate to so many other areas of life. Like you just mentioned about how farmers just like to take a chance and just plant the seed. And if it fails, it fails. And if not, you've learned something. And I think that's such a great trend to carry out through life. So how cool is that? And I mean, you can just tell by the way you speak about it, how passionate you are about it. And it's just like, it makes me want to know more about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should start growing stuff.
Yes.
One day when I have a home, I live in an apartment, and I don't think I'll have 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, which wouldn't be fair for the veggies. So I feel like I'm going to wait. But
there are like 8 vegetables that can be happy with 4 hours of sunlight.
Ooh. What are the vegetables? Do you know, Seth?
You're going to grill me on it. I knew you were going to ask me that. Dang it. Let me see
if I can off the top of your head. What can I grow in my apartment?
Butternut squash. So like winter squashes.
I love butternut squash.
Yeah.
It made me so happy.
But if you're growing on a patio, like winter squash, plants get huge. So it might like take up your whole patio. It can be like 6 foot to 12 foot long. They're giant.
Oh, wow. That would be my balcony.
Yeah, it might be a little tight. I think lettuces are on that list. Maybe radishes, carrots. I'm going to pull it up and check for you. What I wanted to say was I just launched this e-course and program, so you can upgrade to like the Zoom program. It was going to be a local workshop. I had partnered with a community garden site, and the people that purchased the it was called Reap What You Sow. So it would come with the e-course, and then you could upgrade to the local workshop series. And we were going to literally go there bi-weekly. It's like 8 weeks over 3 months, and basically build them a garden. So they would get like all this hands-on experience. But due to the coronavirus, nobody's gathering, and so we have moved it over to the Zoom calls, right? So I'm like talking to these people, and we're sharing, and there's about 12 women that signed up for it, and we are having a stinking blast. But one thing I told them like up front was, get ready to get disappointed. Okay, because it's going to be such a learning curve, just like it was for me my first farm season, because everybody, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so like the e-course is like super, I try to keep things simple and fun and energetic, but like this is what you need to know to get started. Here's some fundamentals, you know what I mean? And then in between, it's like, well, what are you guys doing? This is what I did this week. Like, this is why I'm doing this. And, you know, a lot of like kind of reiterating and letting people like share with me what they're doing. And it's like, you know, I've never grown vegetables in this house that I've lived in. This is a new place, right? New location, new light.
So you're kind of learning with them.
Mm-hmm.
You're learning with them, like along.
Yes. I mean, and I've already been having failures, right? Like,
but I think that's so important too to mention because, and I love that, like, get ready to get disappointed. Like, yeah, it's a part of the process. And like, it might sound harsh to some people, but I think that knowing that that's part of the expectation kind of keeps you more grounded of like, hey, this is going to be a part of the process. You are going to maybe plant something and nothing will happen. And we're going to troubleshoot and figure out what's going on. Is it the soil? Is it the, you know, the sun? And again, another really great life lesson from gardening right there.
That's right, baby. You just got to cast the seeds, roll the dice, take a chance, you know, take a risk. Mm-hmm. What is life if you're not taking some kind of risk and getting out of your comfort zone?
Yeah. Okay. Through that, you learn so much. I feel like so we set these, you know, these goals for ourselves. We make these commitments and then we go through the challenge phase where it's really difficult and it's tough and you have to like really learn some hard stuff. But on the other side of that is that confidence and competence that you build in your abilities that transfer over into many areas of your life.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing too, I want to give a shout out to is, you know, business coaches, spiritual coaches, strategy coaches, right? Because that's what helped me get from the idea phase at that conference into the actual like launch place, right? I joined, if anybody wants to talk to me about this, I joined a program called the Fast Track program. And it's just a kind of a group of coaches. And, you know, there's 6 different coaches and, you know, there was a body of information online, and, you know, we met weekly just to kind of get new information. And I feel like having that support, encouragement, because it's like my experience in my life and all the cycles of entrepreneurship and parenting that I've gone through is there's ups and downs. And one minute you feel like a beast, and then the next minute you feel weak and you feel small and you feel scared and you don't know which way to go and how do I come back to life in this industry and how do I show myself as an expert again when I've been out of the game for a couple of years, you know? How do I get that confidence and be relevant and like share that passion and expertise, you know, in a way that can serve somebody and like be a viable business, right? And so, you know, having some coaching and support that way and encouragement was a huge help to me, you know, and I had used a business/spiritual coach a couple years before, right before I got pregnant with my second daughter. And she was amazing too. And I've also been very blessed with like lots of support in my personal life as well over the years. Whereas a lot of people that can't say that, but I've got a huge fat support group, like cheering me on, baby. And I use them, you know? And so I find that to be fundamental in any entrepreneurial game, any kind of business endeavor. Like we need wind under our wings, baby. Like we need support and somebody be like, you just need to do that. Yeah, just go ahead and do it. I know you're scared. It's okay. You know, I got you. Like, just take the action. And then do the mental work, the spiritual work, the praying, the manifesting, the affirmations. I'm sitting next to a salt lamp right now. And
I've got my essential oil diffuser. I'm holding my crystal right now, actually, as we talk.
Girl, look, I've got on my rose quartz right around my neck.
Oh, I love that. One of my best friends loves rose quartz.
Self-love.
I think self-care. I don't even remember what this is, but I love holding it.
It makes you, it's a rock. And so it is grounding too.
Exactly.
You know, it's a grounding force. I mean, I've got my Palo Santo here, my sage. I've got, energy.
Yeah. All about it.
Yeah. It's a truly, because you know what? Gardening and farming is dirty and sweaty and gritty, right? But it's like, that's not really how I show up on social media. you know? And so like, I have to kind of channel different energies sometimes, masculine and feminine. I'm very in the masculine a lot, and I have to work hard to be in my creative, intuitive, feminine energy, because that's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to a lot of females. I prefer to work with females, you know? Definitely, 100%.
You can relate to them in that way, you know? You can relate to them better in that way.
Yeah, they're not hitting on me constantly.
No one wants that.
No offense, fellas. So I found that list of
let's hear it.
8, 9, 10. It's 11 things. Okay, 11 things that you can grow in an area that receives 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. But in parentheses, it says, however, best yields may be realized in full sun. Yeah, we know that. Thanks. So, carrots, cauliflower, Swiss chard, cucumbers, lettuce, onions, parsley, peas, radishes, spinach, winter squash. So, patio, I would definitely do spinach, radish, lettuce, onions, peas, carrots. Those are Swiss chard. All that's super small. Super small. Well, cauliflower, I mean, that's pretty small too. But like winter squash and cucumbers, those like vine kind of out really big. So it might be less of a option. You don't want it like trailing off your balcony into your neighbors. Like,
yeah, I don't think they'd be very excited about that.
So yeah,
cool though. I love all of this, and you've given so many like great like tips just about like life, and I just love your story. Like, I just thank you so much for sharing, because I've learned so much from that.
You're welcome. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Good. Yeah, you know, I can tell.
Well, and I think it's because like I've never done this. I've never been a garden consultant before. Right?
But you know so much about it. And now I think it's cool that you've taken that passion that was once very much, you know, in person, and with the times we've had to make these pivots, and you've pivoted to really being able to serve people in a way that you can impact people all around the country and the world who want to grow these skills. And I think that is just something that is so cool. And what I want everyone to realize is that like all of the dreams that you have can become something like this. And you just keep planting those seeds and learning and growing closer and getting mentorship, like you said, growing that support system. And like you said, you mentioned having like wind underneath your wings. And I totally believe in that. I have so many coaches who have done that for me when I didn't believe in my dream, and they just like lifted me up to do what we were supposed to do in the world. It's so
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that's really it, is like you are, you know, we need to become empowered to live our purpose. Yeah. You know, and I got away from that, and it pulled my ass back so hard, right? Because that's what I'm meant to do. That is what I am called to do. I love it. It's in my blood. I mean, I wake up thinking about it. I go to bed thinking about it. All day I want to be out in it. You know, and nothing more makes me happy. And I'm sorry to say that. I mean, I have kids, right? And I love the shit out of my kids. I eat them up. But there's like nothing more that makes me happy is to come to your house and help you build your garden. Yeah. Like, I love it. It brings me so much excitement. Like, it's so ridiculous.
I think it's so important to like have those outlets though that really fill you up and bring you joy. And I mean, like I have so much energy just talking to you about this, because I love that you're so passionate about it. It's so cool.
Well, and you know, are your viewers and folks listening to this podcast, are they budding entrepreneurs as well, or are they more in the...
I would say some of them are budding. Like, I know I have a client who, after I worked with her, she was like, you know, I really never considered being a coach until I went through this experience. And like, yeah, amazing, you know? And when you just go through that process, you realize like, I have so many dreams. I'm working with a client right now who told me that one of her big dreams is like running like a party planning, like third party that does like party planning for events and things, or doing like travel agency stuff for corporate businesses. And I'm like, wow, that is so cool. Like, how do we like build that dream up? And it's so cool to dig into those things. So I think that we definitely all have like these little passions and niches. And I think with the work I do is like really helping to like mend this whole like mind body experience, bringing that spirituality, looking inwards. And that's where we really find our truth, which kind of leads down this path of like, how can I serve others through my gifts? So I definitely think that a lot of them have that.
Yeah, cool. Well, I was asking because I've been thinking a lot about, how to generate multiple income streams from a single business, because in my situation with having super young kids and I lived out in the county for a long time, like I wasn't in front of people, I was online. And so that was my original focus was, oh my gosh, how can I, monetize my expertise online through online programming and all that. E-courses and trainings and just being a support, because a lot of that, I have upgrades too on my programs for like Voxer support, you know what I mean? Because people are like, oh my God, this is what's going on with my plants. Like, what do I need to do? It's like so great. You know what I mean? It's like, how much we get excited about it and how tied up we get, and what's going on. And so there's like the online stuff, but then there was also like local options, right? Like for me, for example, like I'm doing garden design now for people and I'm doing garden installations and I'm building raised beds and I'm, bringing over truckloads of dirt and I'm hauling it for you. I'm having a plant sale coming up because all of a sudden I feel like I need to have a nursery and I bought some heat mats and some grow lights in my basement. And I've got like hundreds of plants down there, because why not, right? And I published a 2020 calendar, like a planting guide calendar, and it is like thick with information and pro tips, and and you can buy that online, like it's so it's a tangible product, and so I feel like when you do get into your zone of genius and you find what you love and are passionate and and you want to serve about, like different things start to develop. Like I didn't have the calendar on my business plan. I didn't have a plant sale, you know what I mean? And maybe it might bring me $500, but that's still sweet. I mean, that's still, more than I had in my pocket or whatever, and, my business last month, I hit a 4K month for the first time in my business and this business, and it feels really good. I'm like super excited. Like that was my goal was 45 and I think I actually hit 42. And so this month I'm like, I'm going to hit 10. I'm going to go for 10 and see what happens. You know what I mean? Just like keep the momentum going, keep the excitement going, and be creative, and see what things can you create that will help someone else solve a problem.
Yeah. And I think that like everyone kind of has like a story and something that they have that they're good at that they can help other people with. And I love that you brought up multiple income streams because I'm totally passionate about creating that myself, and seeing like my coaches do that has been really, really cool because I think the whole model of, and I work a full-time job and I love my full-time job and what I get to do with that, but having like coaching, and I eventually want to write a book and things like that, just, yeah. And just like courses, I think courses are a great way to get information out to the world. And I just think there's so many different avenues, and why not explore all of these so that you never have to have all your eggs in one basket, especially in times like these. We do have so many resources now where you can have multiple income streams. And that way, when something isn't maybe working the way you thought it was, you have like these 5 others and you're still able to like support your family and grow your future. And I think that is so important.
I love your language, girl. Grow your future. Yes. For me, it's so literal and figurative. Yes. It's like very much a lifestyle, but also very tangible. There's so many reap what you sow. Like there's just so many, like, I feel like phrases that we use and ideas and philosophies that we have that come back to like the earth and like gardening principles and like, I don't know, growing stuff. It just tickles me. It does.
So much. Well, I have just like enjoyed this so much. It has been such a just a gift being able to talk to you and hear about your passions. And I know that my audience is going to love it too.
Yay.
Where can people come find out more about you and Guidance for Growers?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Marlena Wolf, and Guidance for Growers. So I've got a private Guidance for Growers group on Facebook. So we post a lot of educational stuff in there, and then like what we're doing in the Reap What You Sow program. But I feel like the website's probably the best place to find me, which is just www.guidanceforgrowers.com. You can find everything about our Reap What You Sow series that's going on right now. There's some consulting and installation info there too. There's some freebies as well, and you can get a link to the 2020 calendar there. And then you can always email me at guidanceforgrowers@gmail.com. And my number is 550-4109. Oh, wait. Area code 502. Hit me up.
Hit me up. I love it.
Like to talk if you haven't noticed.
I love it. Well, I'm definitely going to include all of the ways to contact you in the description so people can come find you. But thank you again for spending some time with us here today.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Mind and Body Strong podcast. You are what makes this movement and message possible. If you loved this episode, share it with a friend, a coworker, a family member, or take a screenshot and share it on your favorite social media platform and tag Mind and Body Strong. To learn more about coaching and courses to help you take your journey to the next level, visit mindandbodystrong.com.